Well, we will get started, and I'll just keep an eye on the waiting room in case anyone joins us late. Thank you all for taking the time to meet. So really, this is just going to be an open forum. I just have a few notes to start out with and an agenda that's so brief, I didn't even send it out because I really do just want this to be an open forum. So as you all know, we love our events and can't wait for this COVID thing to get past us so we can get back to normal events again. You know, we miss the parades and the train days and the strawberry fairs and everything else that we have. They're fun for the residents. They raise money for great causes, and they also attract visitors to the town. Town council, almost year or two ago, adopted a tourism marketing plan. And one of the items within that plan was how can the town help promote and invigorate the special event organizations that we already have. We, of course, have event organizations like the sports backers that hold events in town, but because they're not Ashland focused, we wanted to start the conversation with just our Ashland-based organizations to get just input from you all. Is there anybody on the call who doesn't know somebody else? Do we need to do introductions? I'm Matt Rennell, the Assistant Town Manager, in case anybody wasn't aware, but.
I'm Maggie Longest. I'm Executive Director for Downtown Ashland Association. So we do Ashland Train Day, light up the tracks, the Easter egg hunt, the Easter keg hunt.
Halloween.
And Halloween.
Well, I'm Julie Lefevre. I'm with the Ash Cake Women's Club, and we have completed 17 races. We hold the Ashland Harvest Run in October at Carter Park. Our 17th race was not an actual race, nor was it a virtual race. We did have Facebook donations, and we sent out some letters to past donors, the sponsors of our race. Being very careful, wording our letter appropriately. You know, they didn't have to give us money, but we were very happy that we did get money, and we raised quite a bit of money that way. So again, we have had 17 races.
And I'm Anita
Randy
Barton.
Robertson.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Randy. Go ahead.
I'm with the Ashland Kiwanis Club, and we try to pull off the parade every year for the town. We look forward to it. We missed it last year, but we did the 50th. We missed the 51st. We hope the 52nd will be a lot better.
Exactly.
Randy?
I'm Anita Barnhart. I'm a member of the town council.
Kathy or Sharon?
I'm Sharon Chidsey. I own the Tender Guest House in town. I'm also on the Ashland Women's Cake with Julie, and I am the president of Strawberry Fair.
Thank you.
I'm Kathy Abbott, also on town council.
Well, thank you all for that. So you all know the history of special events in town, so we don't need to go through all those details. And you're also very aware of our current process, going through the festival permit process, working very closely with Doug and his team and all the other organizations that do have to get involved, whether it's for street closures or ABC permits and health permits and all those sorts of other items. And one of the things that we would like to do is once we are past these restrictions and we're able to, get together with friends and family outdoors in large groups again, is figure out how the town can better support your events. Whether that's increasing the size and attendance at your events, the fundraising that you're able to do with your events. If it's one of those that is fairly manpower intensive for the town, like races or parades, is there a way that we can work with you all to improve the experience, but also maybe mitigate some of the resource exposure we have with that? Honestly, I just wanted this to be an open forum and share ideas. And depending how this goes and the interest from you all, we can keep this discussion going into future iterations, whether it's something we do quarterly, semi-annually, annually, and try to get the other organizations on board. So I've got a few things to start the conversation, but I don't necessarily need to use those. So if anybody wants to jump in and share any ideas or thoughts they have on what they could use from the town or other organizations on potential partnerships to improve the events you have.
I'll jump in.
All right.
I'll be first on the list. I'll get money that way, right? I have a couple questions. The sidewalk completion, our race does, our 10K does go down, crosses 54 and down by Macon. It was kind of, due to COVID was really the reason we did not have our race, but the road was under construction. Do you have a completion date for that? That would be what, south? We runs down the south side of the tracks.
The south side of the tracks,
You mean
So
the southbound?
actually, the
side?
course is northbound on both sides, south and on the side and north of 54. So I think that should be lock, stock, and barrel by April, Matt.
yeah, the Amtrak platform in that
Yep.
whole area. Yeah. I mean, we unfortunately don't control the project, but that is what we're
Right.
told by Amtrak and their contractors. is
I
that-
think I saw Maggie do air quotes, so I think that's probably we think April,
Yeah,
but I think this thing started out as should have been done by now, and like Matt said, we just can't control the Amtrak construction process or the weather.
yeah.
And I
Yeah, mean,
noticed that they've pulled up more bricks that they had already laid today.
But to Julie, I think for a fall run,
Right?
which the governor today increased runs to up to 1,000 participants, as long as you're staggering the start and you're not clumping people together at the start. So I don't foresee if we're still have that train station under construction in the fall, something else horribly has gone wrong. So I don't foresee that being a problem for your race, Julie.
Okay, good. That was good. Good to know. So as far as how do you, to help us out, we have to have our course recertified this year. Is there a possibility that any funds would be available to help us do that?
What's the magnitude of cost for that?
Well, I've been told about $500, possibly. I think it's Michael George with Sports Backers. Are you guys familiar with him at all?
I don't know his name, but I know other folks at that organization. I deal with John and Luis on the bike walk side on a few items, so I can always follow up with them. I mean, there's potential funding. I'm not going to say it's a lot. This is definitely going to be an even tighter year likely coming up in FY22. However, I see this because tourism falls within my responsibilities as these brings visitors to town. So if we can make that connection and if I have funds available within the tourism department to help offset some costs, that's definitely a discussion we could have about it. When do you need to have that done by? If your race is in the fall, when does the certification need to be complete?
Well, after the road is completed, of course. So it kind of, depends on that. It expired the end of the year, but that was fine because again, our race, as you said, it's not until October. So we have time. So I would maybe May, maybe shoot for May. What works for you as far as the possibility of if we could get some funds?
Honestly, it may be easier this year, so before June 30th than it would be later. Let me connect with the chief offline about that, because if there's a way that we could certify that your course in conjunction with other street races in town to try to both save money for the organizations, assuming that certification could apply to any number of races, but also help out with the potential manpower issue in APD for staffing these races. So I'll check in with Chief after this and then we'll follow up with you.
Okay, thank you. We did have to restart. We used to go across 54 and route and Ash Cake. And there was a time when we could only do a change, so we only did one, and the town did help us, and we really appreciated that. So
Okay.
whatever you can do is wonderful. Because of course, the monies we raise, we want to give to the local beneficiaries in the town or in Hanover County.
Yeah, I'll follow up with you on that, or Chief, or I will.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. I mean, is there anything else connected to that race that you all have thought of that you would like to do related to it? Or is it just continue that effort and the fundraising that comes along with it?
Right, it's the fundraising that sponsors, we get a lot of sponsors. That's where we get our monies. And it's not a huge race, but now we're a 24-woman club. So we do pretty good. We manpower the police. Of course, we have to pay them to work the race, which is, we do budget for that. But unless anybody else has any ideas.
Yeah, I mean, so just throwing it out there of something that may help defray some of that cost, as well as just be cognizant of the police manpower, is if there's somehow we could combine the race days, or race routes and potentially days as well. So if it's not having to pull a police officer in for a certain number of hours for a race on one weekend and then a certain number of hours on another weekend, if they're already on scene doing that blockage of streets and traffic control. And this is something that, of course, Chief and I can talk in more detail offline. I don't want to speak on his behalf, but it may be easier to do it all in one fell swoop than it would be doing it spread out over multiple weekends between all the different road races, especially if we're able to share a single design course. Of course, Sarah having the races through Arts and Activity Center would need to weigh in on that. So that's something I can follow up with her on. But if they would be willing to adjust something, then they could also share with the certification, as well as maybe just find an easier way to do it and minimize the traffic impact as well as the staffing.
Are you saying have several races on one day?
I mean, maybe in a single day or weekend, somehow, and this would need to be fleshed out. And this is kind of what I was looking for this forum, and get y'all's feedback on it, because I don't want to take away from the fundraising you all do with it, because you are separate entities from the other organizations. But I think from a logistics standpoint of both traffic control of traffic that's just cutting through town, as well as the manpower required on the town side to staff it, if we're able to have those consolidated, even 2 in one day instead of spread out over multiple weekends. Just an idea. I don't know if there's any heartburn with when it's held, or on your route for that matter.
Yeah, our race is from 7. We usually use the police from 7 to 10. It's like 3 hours in October. I'm not sure how many races. I know our Activity Center, Hanover Arts and Activity Center has a race. We have a race. Henry Clay, the Tiger Trot, is that still going on? But I'm not sure where that is.
Those are both south of 54 and sorry, jump in, Chief.
So yeah, I think where that is, both figuratively and literally, is still somewhat up in the air, Julie, for the Henry Clay run. I think COVID and a couple other factors, maybe some of the parents who used to be really active in the running world and their kids were going to school at the same time, matriculated up to maybe Liberty or higher. And maybe that organizing force is there, because we haven't had the Tiger Trot in about 2 years, if memory serves. So I think what Matt's trying to get at here is if we can, kind of leverage the economies of scale. If we had, runs on 2 different dates, if we could combine it into one run and raise twice the revenue with the same amount of overhead, then both organizations win. I think that's, if I may be jumping ahead here, Matt, I think that's kind of what you were getting at is trying to, leverage, the resources that we have to have, which is police officers, cones, signage. We have to have that in order to be able to close the roads and ensure that folks can move around. But if you've got twice the number of runners and you say, and the same overhead, then maybe potentially both organizations could come out better in the long run. But I don't know if we have the volume of runs in town to support that. And I know, especially for your run, Julie, that I know it's kind of in the schedule for the marathon training. This is a big run for those that are in the marathon training program. And they're depending on your run being that third Saturday in October, which is usually always, for those on the call, almost always is homecoming for Randolph-Macon. So that makes a fun little thread the needle opportunity for us there. But I think the runners really depend on that date, if I'm not mistaken, Julie.
Yes, I would totally agree with you.
Okay. And just in case, it's just a bubbly, in case anybody's wondering. Haven't started yet.
You're after 5, you're safe.
Right,
Julie,
I'll
any
speak
other
up for the
thoughts?
Strawberry Fair. If
I'm
you'd
sorry,
like.
go ahead.
We have a lot of expenses, and it is a difficult time because we've had to refund our vendors for 2 years in a row now, and it's been very difficult. So I believe I mentioned some of the things. I did write a grant proposal, and we mentioned some of those things too. But again, paying the police, which are great, and we need the police. Some of those things, if we could get some help with, we would really appreciate. Well, the Kiwanis work with us greatly in the Strawberry Fair, and that's a huge help. They provide a lot of the manpower that we need as well, so that they've been a big boost.
Thank you. How many volunteers do you typically have for the Strawberry Fair, or are typically required to run that weekend?
We take everyone we can find. Anyone. I mean, we have 12-hour shifts. Well, 12-hour, yeah, at least 12 to 15-hour shifts that have to be manned for 2 days, and then we have all the people that have to do the parking and people that have to help. We just use a ton of volunteers. Everybody we can take. Everybody we can get. Did you want to sign up, Matt?
I mean, I'm usually at the town tent each Saturday that it occurs, or at least the last 4 or 5 years.
You can check in vendors on Friday night. We check in vendors till 10 p.m. You could do that. Yeah, I'll put you down.
Thanks. I'd be happy to help in some way.
Okay.
I was driving those public works trucks for a few of those years, but now we've got a larger crew out there for it. So related to the Strawberry Fair, I know the footprint has shifted around a few times, especially as of late. Is the organization, and I guess Chief, from your standpoint, is everybody overall happy with the current footprint and the manpower that footprint requires?
Yes, our vendors have been very pleased with it. We've had so many people that have been disappointed. Some of them frustrated at us for not, this year, not that many people get sick. You should have it anyway. So yeah, no, everybody likes the footprint. We're doing. We've really had some great input from various organizations around, and we're real pleased with the Strawberry Fair. We just need to have it.
Yeah, I would concur with that as well. It's been a pleasure working with Sharon and her group, and whenever we pitch changes to layouts or course routes, and Julie's been there with me when we pitch changes to course routes. Change is always hard, but we appreciate everybody working with us when we look at these changes, because 99.9% of the time it's safety reasons we're trying to adjust these changes. And in both times we've been able to adjust it, both for the Harvest Run and Strawberry Fair, to I think the benefit of everybody. So, but it's because we work together, and it's none of these decisions are made in a vacuum. And I think that's what Matt's starting with now today.
Thank you, Sharon. Randy or Maggie, want to go next? Any thoughts, ideas, questions?
Go ahead, Randy.
Your turn, Randy.
I say, I see John is also on here. He's a little telephone thing down there in the corner. But as far as the parade, the club looks forward to it every year. We hope to get it together again. it does take us about, we need 35 to 40 volunteers that we attempt to get out of the club. We're not always successful with that, but we do have a group we can call on. We call on our Circle K club sometimes too from the college. But my concern right now, and probably John's too, is we need to know whether this is going to happen no later than the 1st of September. So if we either get a thumbs up or a thumbs down by the 1st of September, that's when we start sending out invitations. We send out about 300 invitations, and we usually get about 100 of them back. We do not charge for the event. We just simply run it for the town of Ashland. This is the Ashland Hanover Parade that we're just the facilitator for. So people have talked often about charging people to enter the parade. Personally, I'm not in favor of that. So many of our groups are churches or small scout groups or people that would just have to drop out if we charged. And I'm not in favor of that. The thing that I'm running into now, though, we are getting some commercial floats, if you want to call them that. I'm not too happy about that, but yet it's hard to turn them down when they, if we tell them to decorate, but you get a big, I don't want to call it any names, but we had a couple of them that passed the last time we had the parade that weren't real good. I said, well, if you decorate your truck, and the one truck showed up with a little wreath hanging on the hood ornament. I wasn't happy about that. But I can't. It's hard to say no because it is open to everybody. But as far as the town goes, the support we get from the police is we couldn't do it without it. Frankly, they handle all the road closures, which are numerous. We get a lot of support from First Baptist Church and the use of their lot because there's more people than you can really stage on South Sneed Street and North Sneed. But the route, I think, has been set for a good while now, and it seems to work okay. If there's any changes we need to make, we'd certainly be glad to talk about it. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Kind of my attitude there. Is there anything that you all see on the parade that we need to do differently?
I mean, so I've been at the end of the parade, I think for 3 or 4 years, 2015, 16, 17, and maybe 18, at the First Baptist lot with the fun horses and everything else and the street sweeper. And honestly, from that perspective, it's all run very well as that street sweeper flings everything around and attempts to clean it up afterwards. But I haven't, until I think it was the 2019 one, seen it since the 90s, and I thought it all went very well in 2019. It was nice weather that year too, which helped.
Good.
Randy, Maggie Longest from Downtown Ashland Association. We are considering expanding the dates for Light Up the Tracks to include November. So the goal would be to put up the lights on the buildings in downtown Ashland the first week of November, and then to publicize all of the events that are going to be in downtown, which of course would include the parade, through the end of the year. So we currently Light Up the Tracks is December 1st to December 31st. And this would mean that we were doing basically the first weekend in November through the last weekend in December. So if that's the case, that we don't have final approval on that, but that's what we're working towards. If that's the case, we would love to add to your PR machine and help you get the word out, both for entrance, so we can help you. I have a web platform that can link to yours, because I know you run that through your own website. And then we would also, of course, be publicizing for the audience. But I know that town has done a lot of that in the past. You guys typically run television ads for the parade. Is that correct, Matt?
That's great.
It's been a few years, but I know we have. But yeah, I think the more voices shouting out to the community or really to the region about the parade, the better.
And that may be something we can jointly do going forward.
It used to be filmed every year. Go on,
This
John.
is John Myers on the parade committee. And I'm sorry I'm not on the Zoom, but I am on the call here. My only question is, as Randy said, we have to kick off by 1st of September. What are the metrics that, Matt, I guess it's the town, what are the metrics y'all are using to decide whether these events are a go or a no-go?
So we're following the guidance of the state.
Oh boy, we're in trouble now.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, John, I don't know if you were part of the call that Randy and I were on last summer. We brought in the health director and for Dr. Frank for Hanover Health Department. And, parades aren't necessarily really clearly outlined in some of the governor's EOs, but the gathering of people is. And especially when it's congregating people and not being able to social distance. So I think that was more of a Doug, Randy, and Dr. Frank decision this year to be the Grinch that stole Christmas. I hated to do that, but there was too much risk involved. But I think I would hope to think that by August of this year, we'll have a clear view of where we're at. We'll have an increased number of people that have their immunizations. I don't think we're going to be up to the quote unquote herd immunity by August of 2021, but it's possible. So I think it's something that we should probably strive to shoot for, of having a 2021 parade. But I do think that possibly, July, August, we need to start having more of those in-depth conversations, you, myself, Randy, whoever else in leadership, and pull Dr. Frank in from the Hanover Health Department, and just to start seeing what is it looking like? What can we reasonably do? I know a lot of Fredericksburg did a kind of a reverse parade this year where they parked the floats and people drove by the parade. Great success, other than the 3,000 cars that were lined up to see the parade and they ran out of street. So, those are some things that we can talk about. I thought it was really ingenious, but that would be something we'd really have to kind of figure out how we're going to stage everybody that wants to come drive through the parade. So
we're very fortunate in that our parade draws people from every age demographic. And because if you're in it, there's a lot of standing around waiting for it. And so, if they can only have gatherings of 10 or 25, what do I do with these groups that are stretched down Sneed Street, for a block and a half that are right on top of each other? And so those are the kind of things that, by September 1, we have to have kind of worked that stuff out. Sure. And I'm not a Grinch. I want it to happen too, but don't forget, these are every age groups are in here. And so
absolutely,
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Absolutely. And I'm probably, I may have called myself the Grinch, but I've probably been called the Grinch in other words more often than not.
I think
but
you
anyway.
can handle it.
No, I think this
We
year,
love you, Doug.
the decision was more of a moral obligation to our community to keep our community safe versus just a sheer bullet point on the governor's EO. I think it was a multiple different, a kind of argument points there. Randy was on that part of that conversation with us and Dr. Frank, and I think that's kind of where we landed on. And I think we're going to have to make that similar decision in the fall. And I say we as the collective we. This is not going to be just a Doug decision or just a Randy decision. I think this is all of us need to sit at the table and figure out what's best for our community, because I do think that our community is suffering because we're not able to have the joy and fellowship that some of our events bring. And so we need to get, for our own mental health, I know for mine, we need to get back to some of these events happening.
Question.
So I assume then that, Matt, you plan on having these calls on a monthly basis to say, hey, we're in the 1st of May, we're not going to do this, or we are going to do that for the next 3 months, so that we can all plan? Is that kind of the game plan?
No, the intent of this forum was more to just share ideas between the town and the organizations involved. For event specific stuff like the parade, I think will be handled like Doug mentioned earlier, of him just sitting down over the phone, however, with the leadership of the Ashland Kiwanis to make that call with the input of the health department.
Myself or Captain Kemp, we're always available. And I think Marie has been integral in working with the Strawberry Fair Committee on their decisions as well. So, and if we don't have enough expertise to answer the question, we need to bring in folks from the health department or the governor's office. We can certainly do that and facilitate that as well.
Okay.
A question. When does the train day have to put out their invitations for vendors? And because train day comes a couple weeks before the parade.
We have to get them out by September 1st. Our goal is always August 1st.
Okay, but September 1st is your drop dead. You have to know.
Well,
That's ours.
on deciding about COVID, our drop dead date is July 1st.
Okay. I have a problem with talking to anybody about a Christmas parade before Labor Day. So I've just set Labor Day as my mind here. I'm not going to do it until Labor Day is over.
We just have so much more investment. The train day is very expensive. And we start spending money in July. So the decision has to be made before any money has to be spent. I guess it's my turn.
Yeah.
The events memo that came out for town council alarmed many on my board.
Okay.
And has led to quite a few conversations. And reading the tourism plan under special events, I'm surprised to see the line that says combining efforts into one central organization may result in the development of new events to attract even more visitors to Ashland. I can't imagine the town catalyzing that all your nonprofits or tourism promoters become one organization. I can see the town deciding to have the plan that the town creates about how they're going to set priorities for events and which events they're going to accept. And that my thought on that would be that it was based on what met your economic development strategies and what met your tourism goals. And so we would certainly hope that Ashland Train Day, hits on all cylinders in that. It's promoting exactly what the town is, telling people why they should come here, why it's branding the town as the adorable historic train town that we are, that we can deliver on 365 days a year. So we hope that people come here for Ashland Train Day, but the real impact of Train Day is in the 600,000 media impressions that we get by hosting an event. Then the news covers us, then we're on every live channel, we're in every kids magazine, we're in the RT, we're in the newspapers. And that's really the point for us of throwing these events, is to put Ashland on the map and to keep them in the front of people's minds. And so that I use that only as an example. That's not the case, I would say, for the Easter egg hunt, which we do on the campus of Randolph-Macon. I'm not aware of any town support we've ever asked for or required for that event, where it's entirely insular to the green spaces at Macon, and we have kids out there collecting eggs, and that's an effort we do just to be connected to the university and to have a positive experience for kids who live in Ashland or who are faculty members of Macon or otherwise. That's not a tourism promotion activity, and it's not something that we would ask the town to support us in.
Sure.
But those efforts that are branding the town and putting forward and meeting the town's goals seem like they should go forward. And it sounds like, based on what we've heard from Richmond Region Tourism recently, that there's going to be continued demand. So for those on the call, that I will briefly state it and then I'll let you talk about it, Matt. Richmond Region Tourism is the regional tourism promotion arm that Ashland recently joined. And they have proposed to hold an event here in downtown in June of 2021. And so if that is an indication of more to come, that may be a sign that we need to set priorities about what can close all of our streets, and where you're going to put your resources. But I can't imagine, you know, the alternate, I just can't see how a municipality is to going to push, you know, the outsiders to combine. It seems like the municipality should have the central plan, and we can fit into it where you need us to, where you see fit.
So the program that you're referencing, it was brought to council as a discussion point and not to action to start this discussion. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, on February 2nd town council meeting, there was a proposal that was taken to council for just to discuss the topic of how town council or how the town supports special events. And one of the ideas was a voluntary program that would incentivize event organizers to combine efforts. And the town would provide some financial incentive if they combined efforts. The idea being that there's economies of scale that could occur between sharing labor, volunteer labor pools, sharing overhead costs, potentially even using the funding to buy things that are used by multiple events, like whether it's the signage or fencing or whatever else that's needed.
Maybe a
And
stage.
helps, yeah. Yeah, the stage and tents and other stuff that the town had purchased in previous years and then donated to organizations. So it was to hopefully help these organizations get more bang for each of their buck instead of having many organizations focused on one item or only a couple items. But overall, within that proposal, the events considered were those that require a festival permit. The events like the Easter egg hunt on the Randolph-Macon lawn are something that is just contained within a private area or private facility that doesn't require town resources. No harm, no foul. They're awesome to have. It's not really what was considered as part of this potential program. And just to reiterate, it was just a draft program to start the discussion. There have been other localities that have actually mandated that they've designated either themselves or a nonprofit to run all special events. And at least my recommendation wouldn't be to do that, because then it would cut out a bunch of other great events. Whether it's, you know, the marathon that cuts through a good swath of Ashland and Western Hanover, or these other big events that come in. It's really, we have so many great events already in town and great organizations. And we know there's already a lot of overlap in the labor pool, the people that are serving on their boards, the people serving the days of the events and both setup and tear down. How can we help them be more effective as an organization and hopefully create a even better event by attracting more people to it and raising more funds for whatever they're focused on. So that sort of the goal of that program. But what came out of that discussion is what we're doing today, which is just an open forum to hear from just the Ashland-based organizations. The outside organizations weren't invited because even though we do care about them, you all are the ones who, you know, live, work, play in Ashland. And this is what we want to hear and be open to it. Any, Kathy or Anita, since you all were involved in that discussion, anything that I should have stated from that evening that I forgot? Not to put you on the spot. If you're talking, I can't hear, sorry.
No, I would just reiterate that, you know, the goal is to help and not burden. So we're just looking for any ideas that just make it easier for folks to put together events in Ashland. And I frankly really love the idea of, you know, of being able to share resources, because, you know, that cuts down on everyone's overhead, which means more, you know, money in your pocket. So, you know, these are the ideas that we would love to hear, because the program was fluid. We just had to create a starting point. But, you know, a lot of you are the actual, you know, event holders that are most affected. So, you know, that's really why we want to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and I'm gonna just piggyback on that. I was just under the impression when it was brought to the council's attention, it was a way for us to put together a skeleton, so to speak, or some type of a template so that, you know, if you're going to have an event, this is who you need to contact for X, Y, and Z. This is who you need to contact for the police, whatever. And that's the way that I was looking at it too. I wasn't looking at it as lumping everybody in one big, you know, ball and, you know, you have to do these things, but we have some kind of a working format so people would know what to do.
Yeah, and I think to your point, Anita, that would be a benefit to these outside groups like Richmond Region Tourism that are coming in, that if they needed help coordinating or just, you know, who do you use locally for resources? And I apologize, my light went out in my office.
I just lost you.
That if there was a large organization, even if it wasn't an organization that ran all the events in town, but ran a couple of them, that we could say, hey, we can help you with this stuff that deals with public safety. You know, we're going to retain that responsibility because that is a government responsibility. But if you need help finding out who has the best resources for X, Y, and Z, this organization in town that already runs these events, they have a list of resources available, or you may be able to even rent or borrow from the resources they already have. Like PD Brooks, I mean, great company. And I know they provide for a lot of the events we have in town, but that is a substantial cost. At least I know it is for what the town pays out for the holiday parade each year, just the rental of those cones and signage. So, I mean, if that's something that maybe a single organization can't justify buying that many cones and barrels and everything else, but a combined organization may be able to justify it if they're running enough events as a single organization. But I mean, if there's other ideas or thoughts, or if there's just not support for having more town support other than just cutting checks, then that's also what I need to hear, and I'll take back to the administration and the council.
I think that we all do have a lot of those same physical resources that we're renting each event. We borrow for train day, we borrow all of Strawberry Fair's sandwich boards. In most of our events, we borrow all of the Ashland Street Parties fencing. It's currently in use by the town at the moment, so it's not going to be part of events until after COVID. But it's certainly something that we are doing sort of on an ad hoc basis. And if there was a more formalized way to do it, that would be great. The administration of that could be difficult for a lot of folks that, you know, either have one staff member or no staff. And so I don't know if that's something that the town wants to manage the registry for. That I would have the same question about storage. I have a lot of, the organization has a lot of things in storage, and I shuttle them back and forth from somebody's garage in Elmont. So we don't have room for, the community's storage as well. We literally, there would be nowhere to put it.
A central registry of people of all the different organizations would be most helpful, because whether you're borrowing something or you just need, like we're getting ready to get for parade, we're running out of our own club members. We need other groups. It'd be helpful to know who is the contact at X, Y, and Z that I could talk to.
Sure.
And so a central registry of a single contact for each organization would be incredibly helpful.
Okay.
And I don't know who would maintain that. I don't want to throw anything on somebody else's desk to do, but somebody, maybe Matt, maybe you have that already because you deal with everybody. I don't know, but I would think that would be the most helpful thing we could do, is create a central registry of a single contact in every organization so that we would know who to talk to.
Sure. I mean, I think we definitely have a lot of those pieces on points of contact and that level of information, at least a single point of contact. We may not have multiple per organization, but we could probably generate some base level registry that could just be shared just internal to the special event community. What it does beyond that, I can't say. Staff will definitely do, but as far as centralizing just a database of Ashland organizations that do events, we could put something together.
Captain Kemp may already have it.
Okay. because some groups don't do that many events, like the Lions Club. They don't do that many events, but it would be nice to be able to, hey, I know somebody who's over there. I can call them and say, hey, do you want to participate in train day or parade or whatever? But we don't know who they are.
Sure. And that's where we honestly would also need help. I mean, we've got a few staff members who serve on a few of those service organizations, but we would need help plugging in those holes on who's the right point of contact for them if they're not already supporting an event.
Yep. And that's something that it kind of develops over time, but we don't need to borrow equipment. We need to borrow people.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, Matt, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I want to say one more point about I think we are in the same boat. Our hardest part is people and having volunteers that want to be in, I mean, train day takes 6 months to plan. People that want to be involved in a serious way, but also able-bodied people that want to come and help kids look at fire trucks, right?
Mhm.
And so that's always the case. And I want to share the experience I've heard from, so there are 30 Main Street organizations around Virginia, and Lexington in particular, which is a town very similar to our size and similarly right off I-81, and they have a college, they have two. Their Main Street was the central organization that was running all events for their town, and they couldn't keep it going. They were having they spent the last 3 years begging their sister organizations, like all of you on here, to take a parade, to take a trick or treat or this or that, because you can't keep the same group of volunteers and think they're going to work every month.
No, they can't.
And so there just really are limits on that.
Sure. I'm just writing down notes. Any other thoughts, ideas, questions? Has it been helpful to hear from the other event organizers and to see each other's faces?
Sure.
Or is it just helpful in general to hear other people's voices that aren't family or coworkers?
Yeah.
Kind of nice.
This is very helpful.
Right. Well, I don't want to hold y'all long. I realize it's already late and the sun's going down, and we should all try to enjoy what little bit of nice weather we have left for the day. Thank you all. If there's
Thank you,
nothing
Matt.
else, I will, once this gets recorded and stuff, I'll send out the link. So you all are welcome to share it around as well. But thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for pulling it off.
Bye, everyone. Nice to meet
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Y'all have a great